All right, so I want you guys to check out this clip. It's going to be in reference to a video I'm going to be tying this into, but I want you to pay attention to something that I'm going to be showing you here. This is by a YouTuber named Gabriel Varga, who is basically talking about the fight that I'm going to be basically making some points on. Check this part out real quick.
When I am cringing after a KO, it means it's bad. Like, I've been in this game for a long time, fight sports in general, and for me to be like, oh, something really bad happened. So I was just watching Bryce Mitchell versus Josh Emmett. Crazy overhand from Emmett. Drops his head to the side, gets it off the center line. As Mitchell is entering, he comes right into that overhand, sort of corkscrew style, turns.
Did you guys see that real quick? I'm gonna rewind it a little bit just so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So the guy in the white shorts, that's Josh Emmett, and the guy in the darker shorts, that's Bryce Mitchell. Okay, but I want you to pay attention to something here. Once he gets knocked out, okay, and a lot of fighters do this. They knock their opponent out, but then they'll go and follow up with some unnecessary hits afterwards. And this is basically what I'm going to be referencing in my video. All right, where this can be detrimental to an opponent, especially in the long run. But I'm also going to be talking about, what the fighter has to do with it in reference to, like, let's say even the referee's job and whatnot. But I want you to see what happens here after he knocks him out. What happens and what Josh Emmett, which is the guy in the white shorts, does. Check this out.
Entering, he comes right into that overhand, sort of corks.
Do you see what happened? After he knocked him out, he just stood right over him. He didn't follow up. The referee doesn't have to muscle or wrestle him off. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I'm talking about when it comes down to respecting your opponent, even though you're in there literally trying to take each other's head off. And I think this is class act. And then I'm going to be showing you an interview that Bryce Mitchell did right afterwards. In reference to Josh Emmett not following up, because it could have been really bad for Bryce Mitchell. You saw how brutal that knockout was? That's probably one of the most brutal knockouts I think I've seen in UFC history. I mean, the guy was twitching and convulsing on the floor. This guy, Josh Emmett, the guy in the white shorts, is known for his incredible power. And I mean, Bryce Mitchell is one hell of a fighter, but he took this fight on short notice, which is basically what, Gabriel Varga is basically going to be talking about in this video. The point of him making this video is basically, saying that fighters shouldn't take fights on short notice for this reason, and not taking anything away from Josh Emmett, because Josh Emmett possesses some serious power. But there's also another level of power here. This is what I'm going to be talking about in reference to what a man is. You know what I'm saying? But stay tuned. So here I want to show you the interview real quick that Bryce Mitchell did, after that fight, and check this out.
So happy with Josh Emmett because right after he knocked me out, he could have followed up with the hammer fist, and it probably would have killed me. And he didn't even follow up with anything. He was just happy with his knockout, and he walked away. And I'm so gracious for that. I will forever remember that. Thank you for not hitting me extra, Josh. It takes more of a man to actually do that. Everybody thinks you're more manly if you hit them after they go down. It's actually you're more manly if you walk away and care about that person. Thank you so much, Josh. So happy.
It's interesting he said that, right? Because, and this can go into many layers. This is why I spoke about the Colby Covington press conference, where he had things going his way up until he took a low blow after he's been having the whole press conference under his control, because that's what he's known for. He's a good trash talker, and the guy Leon Edwards is not known for trash talking. But that low blow, I use that and look at that as an example as to like kicking somebody while they're down. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's always karmic consequences to that kind of stuff. But I want to show you this into what I'm talking about in the press conference, and how this actually turned on Colby Covington. This interview is what I referenced in my just most previous video. If you want to check that out, I suggest you do because it's got some very, very good information there. But check this out right here.
Time
Then
you're
they get knocked the fuck out
Bro,
after,
you're a
right?
fucking idiot.
Then they get
dude.
knocked
You
the
might-
fuck.
So just for clarity, Colby Covington's the guy in the blue suit. Leon Edwards is the guy in the black shirt, and he's the current champion. This is an example of what I'm talking about, kicking a guy while they're down, or because I mean Colby Covington did have the press conference under his control. It was literally going his way until he took this low blow, and it was just where I say that there's a certain, I mean, and here's the thing, everything's allowed. And I'm going to talk about that in my video that you're about to watch. Everything's allowed. Like, let's say if a fighter is down and you decide to follow up with extra punches, even though it's fucked up, it's allowed because it's the job of the referee to stop the fight. It's not your job to stop the fight. And I'm going to make examples of this when I talk about it in the video. Like what Colby Covington did here is allowed. Was it beneficial? Well, then that's basically what we're up against in question. But check this out right here.
the
After,
stupidest
right?
guy on the UFC roster. Literally, you're so fucking stupid. On Saturday night, I'm gonna bring you to a place you never want to be. I'm gonna bring you to 7th layer hell.
Okay.
No, I'm bringing you to 7th layer hell. We'll say what's up to your dad while we're there.
Oh.
See what I'm talking about? Shit got real. You get what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna lie, I know that Colby got, I mean, it shook his core. I'm telling you, man. When I watched that, I was like, yo, you can see the energy that came out, and you could see that was a beast that got woken up in Leon Edwards. That was what I was referencing to when I spoke about it in my previous video. You'll find this video very interesting that I'm going to be talking about, what a real man is, because in actuality, a lot of guys will go on camera and tell you what a real man is and whatnot. I'm going to be talking about it from one layer because I can go many layers into it, and I will in like the next videos, but I want you to stay tuned for that. But in this video, I'm going to basically be showing you now the other videos. Like here, for example, the next one I want to show you is the one with Khalil Roundtree and Anthony Lionheart Smith. All right, I want you guys to check this out. How much time? This one, for example, Anthony Smith is the guy on the ground, and Khalil Roundtree is going to be the guy that's standing over him. Okay, and I want you to see another class act here, and just check this out. Fighter had to follow up with that hammer fist before the ref interfered, and I'm going to talk about how in real life we look at this and say, well, things are allowed, but should we execute any further on these things? This is going to tie into the stuff I was talking about when it comes down to trash talking. It's going to come down to what a man is and what his role is, including his interaction with females especially. Check this out. Did you see how much time he had? The ref did not interfere. Okay, he literally stopped the fight. Khalil Roundtree, which is the guy that's above the guy on the ground, Anthony Smith. Khalil Roundtree had plenty of time to go in and execute and finish the fight, but instead of the ref finishing the fight, which is what his job actually is, Khalil Roundtree stopped the fight himself. And this is what I'm talking about, being a mixed martial artist or a real man as far as honoring and respecting his opponent regardless of what it is that they're doing, even though it appears they're trying to take their head off and whatnot. Here in society is the same thing. It appears to be a dog-eat-dog world, but we're all leaning against each other, supporting each other regardless if it looks like we're going up against each other. That support of going up against each other is actually supporting our positions, because without that other opponent there, you'd have nothing to go up against. even though going up against is what you're doing is you're versing each other, but that verse is one song that you guys are creating by dancing with each other. So that's why they say this is your dance partner in that octagon, or whoever you're doing this in life with is your dance partner. But without that person there would be no song to dance to, right? So either way, we can look at this at so many angles, because it's always going to be you versus you at the end of the day. All right? You're attracting what you are. This is why it says that the stronger the hero, the stronger the villain. The stronger the villain, the stronger the hero. But you're always going to be fought up against somebody that matches your energy to some extent. And you can both gain out of it. And this is the little trick here, is you think that that person's separate to you and you're taking it so serious, taking it so personal, but at the end of the day, it's meant to be good sportsmanship. So there was trash talking before this fight, right? And after the fight, you bury the hatchet and you shake it off. It's kind of like we go through life, and then all of a sudden at the end of the day, or at the end of the life, you figured it was just all a stage, it was just all a game, and your worst enemies are really hugging it out with you at the end. Or you can have bad blood, which brings negative karmic effects. And these are just things, in my opinion, that we can look at when it comes down to what we hold a heavy heart with. If we're holding a heavy heart, this is why they say your heart gets weighed against the scales of Ma'at, where, what does this actually mean? How much baggage do you hold too close to your heart? It could be negative emotions, it could even be positive emotions, things that you love so much that you can't let go of, right? Because you can't take it with you. I mean, you can love money so much, but can you take money with you, right? You're only taking the information, basically the consciousness, and that's not even yours. That's just something that you acquired here. And just like knowledge, you acquired this knowledge here. Are you holding this, to the point where you can't let it go, or you hold it as a form of wealth that really determines you as your character, which in actuality is just all ideas. But this is pretty interesting to think about. All right, so right now I'm going to show you real quickly a video where a ref doesn't stop the fight on time. And this is where, if it would have gone, let's say, very wrong. Let's say it could have gone really bad for the guy who was getting pounded on, right? Whose fault would it be? Would it be the ref's fault or the fighter's fault for, let's say, causing the fighter who was getting pounded on permanent damage, right? I want you to check this out. See, the fight could have been stopped right here. Once the fighter on the ground is flattened out that way, and all they can do is basically cover up, but they're not able to defend themselves in any other way. He's taking unnecessary shots here, but I want you to see, even from this point, how long it takes for this fight to finish, and the referee is not doing anything. He's just there watching. Just check this out. Look at that. Did you see all those unnecessary shots? Look right here. Look, he's already done here at this point. Check this out. That was horrible stoppage, right? Now they asked this gentleman right here, right? They asked him, what was the all those shots, and he basically said that it's not his job to stop the fight. It's the ref's job to stop the fight, and he's right. And if it would have went very, very badly, because the job of the ref is to defend the fighters at all times, right? They're there to referee the fight. And now, from this fighter's perspective, giving those extra shots makes sure that he doesn't leave the fight at the hands of the judges, right? And I'm gonna be talking about that now in my video. But I want you to see now an example of when you don't complete your job as a fighter and you leave it at the hands of the judges. This right here is gonna be a video on Michael Bisping and Anderson Silva. So Anderson Silva's the dark skinned guy, and Michael Bisping is
for a Muay Thai clinch.
Michael Bisping's the guy in the white shorts, the lighter skinned guy. He actually ended up winning the fight. But I'm going to show you how Anderson Silva could have completed his job and finished him off. But for not finishing him off, it cost him the fight. I'm going to show you right here.
Here comes the onslaught of Anderson Silva. Michael's lost his mouth guard, but Anderson Silva does not care. He's pushing forward in typical Anderson Silva style. There's the tie clinch. Bisping's ready.
Nicely done.
Oh! Jumping knee! Michael goes down!
But that is...
So you see right there, he's literally out. He can't get up. And as soon as he went down, within a split hair, the buzzer went off. Now, Anderson Silva could have just kept on moving in on him because the ref was nowhere near stopping that fight. But because Anderson Silva walked off, right, feeling confident that he knocked him out and not wanting to inflict any further damage, it costed him the fight. Look at this.
The buzzer. The buzzer has sounded. Herb Dean is saying the fight is not over. Michael Bisping, I have to say, Dan,
look,
he needs to protect himself at all times.
At all times.
And he was looking at his mouthpiece.
Michael was distracted then by the referee, who was asking for his mouthpiece. Anderson Silva is convinced that this fight is over, but Herb Dean is saying it's not.
Well, no, that's Michael Bisping. The fight's not over. Michael Bisping is on his chair. His corner should be allowed in. The officials weren't letting the cornerman in. There was obviously some confusion. But now Bisping has seen his cornerman, Jason Perillo. He knows he is still in the game.
That's crazy. So, and it cost him the fight. Because they're in the UK, they ended up giving the fight to Michael Bisping by decision, which I think is insane. Now, I'm going to show you my video here. Okay? Check this out. I have a big... I notice, and this is crazy how the men that call out other men, or the ones that claim to be the most manly ones, or the ones with the loudest barks, or the ones that really can't control their emotions or hold back from certain things in life. And we always say, that takes a bigger man to hold back or be the bigger person. You heard that from a fighter named Bryce Mitchell, who got knocked out by Josh Emmett in the most violent way possible. And the thing is that I also showed you another video with Khalil Roundtree holding back from inflicting further damage on Anthony Lionheart Smith, who was the white guy on the ground. And we look at this. This is why I use the examples of like wrestling, UFC, and whatnot, because life is a big art as well. All right, it's a whole game, and it's also an art where you honor and respect your opponent the same way they say treat your neighbor and your partner as you would yourself, or do unto others as you will want done unto you. All right, especially when it comes to the opposite gender as well. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can tell what a real man would do in a situation like this. Like, if a woman was hitting you, and if a woman was hitting you, how would you react? Would you let this anger and rage get the best of you and actually go and inflict damage on her as well? Or would you just walk away? And in fact, if a woman is hitting you, that says a lot about the man or the individual, the supposed man itself. There's a big saying that I'm a big believer in. All right. Behind every good man, there's a good woman. And behind a good woman, there's always a good man, because you attract what you are. If you got a female that's attacking you and, trying to, diminish your character to some extent, or she backstabs you, or she does some shit to you behind your back. On top of that, if she especially raises her hand at you, I mean, you got to think about the level of respect. And the thing is that there's certain people who wouldn't think to engage in that kind of way with you. And it wouldn't even have to have you be a dog that barks in the yard the loudest. There's people who would know not to mess with you. You know what I'm saying? You carry this certain energy and aura. And if you got this man, this man frequency, all right, or this energy expression coming out of you in a balanced way, I don't care how pissed the female is, she would not think to hit you. The same way somebody in the street would not think to fuck with you just because they just know not to fuck with you. If you are the type of individual who doesn't gossip, who doesn't get into people's businesses, you're not going to attract those kind of people, because those kind of people wouldn't even think to go there with you. They're like, oh no, I'm not going to talk about that with that individual. And this goes beyond intimidation. It has nothing to do with intimidation or fear. This is just something that we pick up from other people. It's kind of like when you can tell when somebody's lying, you can kind of pick those little things up based on body language, based on how they express themselves and whatnot, the things they may be saying, But how you carry yourself and what you emit, people will just know. You don't have to intimidate anybody. You don't have to be the loudest dude in the yard. You don't have to try to go pick fights to show how manly you are. You know what I'm saying? People will just know this. It's kind of like you walk in the room and your presence is felt, kind of like that. They just feel this from you, right? But then there's certain people who would think to do this only because they look at you as somebody that they can engage and feed off of you with that type of, nonsense, like drama, gossip, and talking about others. You're both like vampires feeding off each other. You know what I'm saying? It's like juicy, spicy gossip, and you both love to entertain that. But there's certain people who give off a certain energy where the person who's about that wouldn't even think to come to you to give you that kind of shit. It's like we all somehow energetically read each other. How you express yourself, how you interact with others gives others cues to know if they can even go there with you. As far as like the type of stuff that you say and how you interact with people, or how you actually even talk about others. So everything's an energetic read. Okay? And when it comes down to being a man, you heard this from these MMA fighters, right? Where you'll see that they said, man, it takes a bigger man to really hold back and not inflict further damage on their opponent, right? At the end of the day, I already mentioned that we're all dancing with each other. It's like you're supporting each other to some extent, even though it appears to be where it's you versus me in this game of life that we're engaged in. All right. Here's another little discussion that I've always been very passionate about, where, when you look at these fights, right, they're sanctioned fights, and a guy would just basically say, well, I'm going to knock this guy out, and if the referee doesn't stop me, I'm going to inflict further damage, because the job of the referee is to stop the fight. It's not my job to stop the fight, right? So now you have spectators who are going to have opinions on this perspective, right? And I agree with it is the referee's job to stop the fight. And this is to basically cut out the politics that may happen if you didn't go through with completing the fight. Look, I'll give you a good example. There was a guy named Anderson Silva, which I'm going to tie a video in here so you can see. And he was going up against Michael Bisping. And Michael Bisping got knocked out, literally, like at the buzzer. He got knocked out. And I think there was a split hair of a second left where Anderson Silva could have followed up, and he didn't follow up. And it actually ended up saving Michael Bisping. And it went between rounds where now they were at the final round, and Michael Bisping ended up winning that fight. So, and only because Anderson Silva didn't go through and finish that fight. And I'm going to show you that video because it's very interesting how, because you didn't execute what your job was supposed to be, that was the very last video I just showed you, which was the one where Anderson Silva thought the fight was over. But that's a result of not finishing the job you're supposed to do in that octagon. But you gotta have ring awareness, and this is what I'm going to be talking about here. I think I mentioned it, and it's basically going to tie into even everyday life, where people, you know, they talk about woke and shit. But I mean, I think I'll talk about it here. Just listen in.
Cost you the fight. And meanwhile, there was a lot of politicking because it appeared that Anderson Silva won that fight, but because they were in the UK, I think they gave that fight to Michael Bisping for that reason. That's why they say never leave it in the hands of the judges, right? And we could look at this even in society here. We leave all our fate at the hands of judges when we have to go to a courtroom, right? Because you got to go in and represent your strongman. You're not even the human.
Now, you know what's funny here, though? You should be your own judge before you make some unfavorable choices where you leave it at the hands of the judges here. And do you see how it all ties into the decisions we make in the octagon? But we're all basically battling to some extent our day or harmoniously living our life. But it's only warlike if your mental state is in a warlike mentality. But your decisions and choices determine the outcome of what happens next. And if you make unfavorable choices, then you leave it at the hands of the judges when you go to be judged in a courtroom and whatnot. And your fate is determined and it's left in the hands of the judges. It's funny how all that works out.
You're basically you're going to go to court to represent your strawman. That's what you do.
You're representing Christ. You're representing literally Christ.
And I'm going to tie a little video in the description of this video that'll show you in depth. It's a very short video too. It'll show you how it works when it comes down to how the straw man and when you go to court and the taxes and all this shit and how it actually works. It's very, very to the point where I suggest you watch that. But
I'll put it in the comment section. I'll pin it there.
I'm very big on the fact that if you're doing a job, you execute it, right? But you have to be a good judge yourself, all right? You have to have good ring awareness. This is awareness of your life. If you see that there's seconds left of the buzzer, what do you do in that split second? Do you pull the trigger and execute the move to make sure you finish the opponent, right? Or like the examples I showed you on these videos where the opponent was clearly down and you decided to stop the fight. You took the hands. I mean, you took the judge's job and took it upon yourself to stop the fight rather than leaving it at the hands of the judge, because there's a lot of criticism on judges, I'm sorry, not judges, but referees sometimes not stopping the fight on time, and their job is to actually defend the fighters at all costs. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can see that they get in the line of fire just to stop any further damage from being inflicted, but sometimes there's referees who don't do that, and the fighters end up basically smashing their opponent and giving too many unnecessary hits, which actually causes long-term effects. It shortens the fighter's career. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes when it comes to this, you have to be a good judge and have ring awareness. And at the end of the day, even though you're fighting your opponent, you're also concerned with the health of your opponent there as well. Honor your opponent. How would it feel if it was done to you in return, right? So treat others how you would want to be treated yourself. So it's the referee's job to stop the fight, right? It's the referee's job, not the fighter's job. So if it was ever any situation where, let's say the guy that's on the ground ended up going brain dead, okay? And somehow now it became a matter where it went beyond the UFC, the one that would be to blame would be the referee, not the fighter, even though the fighter was the one that inflicted that damage. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes we're the ones that have to actually put the stop to honor your fighter. Okay? If you, for example, take it upon yourself to inflict damage on a female, if you do not, okay, then who's the one that pays the price? Your straw man, because you weren't in charge of your straw man. Who's the one that really says you have free will or you have the ability to take charge and control of your life? This can go with addictions. This can go with many different things that we look at in life. All right. Who's really in charge and in control? We say, well, I'm battling these demons. You know what I'm saying? You got parasites in your system. Who's really running the show, though? You know, being woke and aware is not how much knowledge and information you know. It's basically who's basically in charge of their life. Who's got that ring awareness, the awareness of their space. This is your octagon. Your ring is your worldview. Whatever you're collapsing into existence in your now moment is your worldview. That's why they say it's a small world after all. Regardless of how big they tell you.
So regardless, even though you see that you have a referee there, right, and you have the awareness to not pull the trigger because you see the you're the one in there that's fighting. And if you see your opponent is out and the ref doesn't catch up on that, all right, you have the awareness to not inflict any further damage on the fighter. And here's the thing though, man, it's not, this is very deep rooted into a level of Christ consciousness. It doesn't matter. People say, because I got criticized one time saying, oh, how you watch UFC? That's all like, you know, so much violence, people beating each other up like animals in there. I mean, I'm going to make another video on that because I'm not on a religious mindset like you are, but everything here is doing the same thing. When you hear religion, when you hear politics, it's all basically doing the same thing, just in different forms. And when I watch UFC, I watch how this shit's playing out in real life, outside of like MMA fighting. When I'm doing gardening, it ties into my everyday life as well. It's like everything is intertwined. Everything. Especially when you're talking about vegans and everything. I don't know, it's saying I don't have enough storage, but hopefully this actually caught everything. But either way, I'm going to finish it up just to make sure.
Let's say the guy that's on the ground ended up going brain dead, okay? And some to blame would be the referee, not the fighter, even though the fighter was the one that inflicted that damage. You understand? So sometimes we're the ones that have to actually put the stop to honor your fighter. Okay? If you, for example, take it upon yourself to inflict damage on a female, if you do not, okay, then who's the one that pays the price? Your straw man, because you weren't in charge of your straw man. Who's the one that really says you have free will or you have the ability to take charge and control of your life? This can go with addictions. This can go with many different things that we look at in life. All right. Who's really in charge and in control? We say, well, I'm battling these demons. You know what I'm saying? You got parasites in your system. Who's really running the show though? You know, being woke and aware is not how much knowledge and information you know. It's basically who's basically in charge of their life. Who's got that ring awareness, the awareness of their space. This is your octagon. Your ring is your worldview. Whatever you're collapsing into existence in your now moment is your worldview. That's why they say it's a small world after all. Regardless of how big they tell you the world is. The world can actually be flat or round depending on what you decide to collapse it into existence. So, you know, it takes a bigger man to know his position and know that if you decide to inflict further damage in this female, you will have your freedom taken away by the system, you know? And the system is you at the end of the day. Think about this though. If you're inflicting this kind of damage on the individual, then what ends up happening? You know?
Like if you like it, and we will talk soon.